Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Talking Locs podcast with Locitude. This is the Everyday People with Locs series, and I am your host, Ade Balogun. This episode is produced by Savage Media. Today, we'll be discussing Locs and Kids. Our guests are two amazing humans. Precious Ajoonu, who has a personal ambition to inspire critical thinking that leads to positive outcomes for individuals and society. She's the founder of the Thinking School and currently head youth engagement and learning at Jobberman. Also joining us today is Aaliyah Ajoonu, Precious's lovely 6-year-old daughter. As you would expect, both mother and child are lockheads. And now, without further ado, let's get right into it. I have started recording. So hi Precious, hi Aaliyah, and hi Aaron, if Aaron is still anywhere around us. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Talking Locs podcast. It is the Everyday People with Locs series, and today we're discussing Locs and Kids. I'm really excited about what this conversation is going to reveal, and I really am looking forward to hear from Aaliyah about how she feels about her locks. So, Precious, if you don't mind going first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your own locks and why you actually would decide to have your daughter have locks?
Thank you so much for having us, Ade. My name is Precious Ajoonu. I'm Head Youth Engagement and Learning at Jobberman, Nigeria. I've had my locks for about 3 years now, and I think it was one of those decisions where you turn 30 and you have your very early midlife crisis. So, I had a midlife crisis, scraped my hair. You know, typically when they say when a woman cuts her hair, there's something happening. So the first transition for me was to natural hair. And I think my partner helped at the time. He really had a thing for a woman, you know, on locks. I remember he saw some program called, I don't remember what it's called now. And I remember him saying the most beautiful person there was the lady with locks.
Wow.
So I was thinking, okay, I have to be more beautiful than she was. But I think that was 2 years before. And then eventually I had locks. But for Aaliyah, she just never really liked her hair being combed. There was something about you combing her hair that she just wasn't having it. I think we managed to cut her hair maybe like 4 times. And then here we are. Aaliyah wants to say something.
Yeah, go on, Aaliyah.
So the first reason I went on locks is yes, because I didn't like the way they combed my hair. I don't like the way that the combs are as big and they want your hair to be as smooth as usual. You can have your hair any way you want.
Fantastic! I'm so happy to hear this, and I even applaud you because Aaliyah, I did not locked my hair immediately after I had cut off my perm. So I don't even really remember what it was like to comb my kinky natural hair. But I do know that is always a concern for most people. Managing the kinkiness in your hair and locking your hair is a very good option. So Aaliyah, how old were you? Do you remember how old you were when you decided when mommy agreed to let you have your locks?
No, but I think I've had it from 2 years or 3 or 1.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think I was 4 then.
Okay, about 4. And how old are you now?
6.
Oh, you're 6 years. So you've had locks for almost 2 years. So I'm going to ask now about you and how you cope with your locks. Do any of your friends in school have locks?
No.
Okay, and does anybody find how do you feel about that? Do you wish more people had locks with you, or are you okay with just being the only one that has locks in school?
Not really, but I'd like if other people had locks so that we could cooperate with each other.
Okay. All right, good. Precious, can you tell us a little bit about navigating the school system with a daughter who has locks?
It's a lot, right? It's a lot, from the weird looks to people asking if it's for spiritual purposes. Believe it or not, there's something there. Was she born with it? Is it spiritual? Is she stubborn because she has locks? I've heard all sorts of questions being asked, and yeah, but again, I think it helps the kind of mother and parents that Aaliyah has, and her own personality as well. My daughter couldn't be bothered, right? So I think for us, and what I tell the school is, if it's a school that would not allow lots, my child is not going to come here. So that's how personal, or that's how important it is for us, because it's natural Nigerian hair. So if you're not going to allow it, then it's not the school for us. And I think that's kind of helped us manage the social pressure, if you like, just having a young child with locks.
Okay, so just speaking a little bit more to the school, I'm wondering, did you actually reject any schools because of that reason? Has it been a consideration, or have you had to have special conversations with like a headmistress on why your daughter has this hair, and what has it been like explaining it?
I think, yes. I haven't had to have a conversation with the headmistress because my children's present school, the owner has locks, so that helps. But I know when we were shopping for a school, we did encounter quite a few schools that would say, they have some sort of hair policy, things around that, in either how they want the boys to have their hair, because my son has a hair situation, if you like. He has very coily hair that tends to lock naturally, So we've had those, but we just did stay away from those schools that were very closed-minded when it came to things like this. Yeah.
Well, interesting.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yes, it does answer my question. I think we at Locitude have, had to speak to a few parents who are considering it for their kids, and one of the big things is school. So even when the parent has a strong personality, or even the child has a strong personality, they are afraid of what perception the child will have and if they would be accepted in the schools that they choose to attend. It really, I've been having these conversations. I think this is about the 5th recording that we are doing on the Everyday People with Locks, and it just reinforces the fact that we don't know who we are. Because why would the stories are kind of like the same, even speaking to everybody else in their different situations in work, in religion, with age. It's just like, why are we rejecting something that is unique to us as Africans? I'm not even sure I've been able to answer that question with this series yet. Like, why do we frown at it? Why would you have to have a conversation about it? Even, why is it something? Right.
Yeah. I think it's so many different things, right? Even growing up, there was this belief that if having locks is spiritual, and how we've moved away from our African spirituality. So anything that takes us closer to our center or reminds us of who we really are, I think is something that is scary for the most part, and things people don't understand. More often than not, nobody wants to explore that. I remember when I had a carry, I got it from Locitude on my hair. It was such a conversation starter. Scared some people off. What's she up to? Why do you have a carry on your hair? I think people maybe imagine I would disappear. I don't know. But it was quite interesting how fearful we are of who we truly are, it's interesting.
Yeah, I like the way you put it about the fear that we encounter when we are approached or faced with anything that reminds us of who we really are. And I believe that this is linked to why Africa is perceived as a third world country. I did not intend to start this podcast from a political point of view. I'm really trying to talk about Locs and Kids here, but I almost feel like the more we become sure and in tune with who we are, the better it is. So Aaliyah, are you still there?
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask, did you like to lock your hair because you liked mommy's hair? Was that a thing for you?
Yes, I actually did once. I was inspired by her and her hair.
Oh,
I
awesome.
actually wanted to try it on, so I went on Locs.
That's great. I just wanted to be sure that it is important how we also perceive ourselves and what our children can take from that. Precious, the next question is a little bit for you. How did your parents take this? How did your partner um, take this decision? Did they think that you're trying to put your child at a disadvantage by deciding to lock her hair?
Well, I think it helped that I locked mine before my daughter, and again, my personality, right? So, with my parents, they think I put a lot of effort in being weird, right? I put in a lot of effort, in being weird. So I think people were, they're very careful not to upset me, and very politically correct, things around. Don't you think it might be better? So now they're thinking, why not natural hair? Why lock the hair? At least we moved from permed hair to natural hair. So why not just stay there? Why do you have to be so intense, locking the hair and those sort of things? But I think, yeah, for my parents, it's more like it's my decision. I'm an adult. I mean, your feedback is welcome, but I will do what I want to do anyway. So, and it's my child, right? But I think the concern was how would she fit in? Would people, maybe discriminate because of her hair? And then they will say things like, people might not tell you, but they're looking at you a certain way. And that's true. And as a parent, I think about that even. How are my children perceived? What sort of friends? And there was a time I was really worried. I think one time my daughter came home and said she didn't have friends, and I was very worried. But something that I'm also grateful for now is they are learning very quickly, especially for my child, not to my girl child, my daughter, not to, to appreciate her kind of beauty. And I tell her all the time, we talk about skin, your brown skin, it's perfect. We talk about her hair, this is your natural hair. She does ask a lot of questions. In movies, their hair very silky. Mine is kinky. Why? Why is my hair that? So I feel like she's luckier than I was, in the sense that she gets a very early start in terms of knowing and appreciating who you are, as opposed to me that had to wait until I'm 30 to start to embrace things like my skin, my hair, and etc. etc. Yeah.
Interesting. I really like the way you put it, and I'm actually, writing some notes and some learnings I'm taking from this, because I think naturally when I do have kids, a boy or girl, you could expect that I will be locking their hair for sure. So, just speaking to perception still, did you have to convince your partner when you decided to make that decision for Aaliyah and with Aaliyah? Did you have any resistance there? Was there any conversation around it?
No, luckily no. Like he's Alia's dad loves the natural African hair. So for him, he was on board. I think that makes it easy. I cannot imagine if he didn't want his daughter to have her locks. It would have been tougher. So he was on board. It was just more make sure it's maintained. Your salon helped, of course, and all of that, so that it's always neat. But he was on board from day one.
Awesome. In the last conversation, you were explaining the worry about how your children will be perceived. Can you tell us a little bit about how you cope with that? What strategies have you adopted over time to make sure that your kid is confident that she's perceived the way she's deserves to be perceived, and that there's nothing wrong? Because I don't want to say, there's that famous saying now. How do they say it? They say the way you dress is the way you will be addressed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the truth is that there's no reason why we should be looking down on our own natural hair, whichever way you choose to carry it. So I don't believe that if you have locks, you should be addressed differently from someone who doesn't have locks. But how do you cope with these perceptions, and what strategies have you adopted?
So I think one of the things that I do is educate my children. So for example, especially around our culture, my daughter will tell you I'm a very proud Benin girl, because I made that a thing. They're very vast. They understand their history. They know about Benin female warriors that went to war, and my daughter would typically say, Mom, we're cut from that cloth. I was at the pool with my child, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and an adult female, I think she's 50, was asking my daughter, why do you have this hair? Why are you, it's kind of rough and all that kind of question. And my daughter asked this lady, who became her friend, by the way, she's 50, just in terms of, I said, why do you have a weave? Why do you have a weave? It's not your hair, so why do you have a weave? And I think that question, surprised the lady, because she said she's never thought of why she has a weave. She has a weave because, it's convenient, everybody has. But you see, the ability to ask why, they got into a conversation. My daughter started teaching her how to swim. They became friends, a 6-year-old and a 50-year-old. And I remember when she was going, she shook my hand and she said, wow, I learned a lot of things today. So I think it's kind of just educating them, get into conversations with people where possible. And also, I kind of don't want my children to not be able to ask why and assume that their point of view is all that there is. So continuously ask people questions, because there was one time my daughter was like, why would anybody not be on locks? You don't have your natural, she had that thing going, you have your artificial hair, you don't know who you are. So I'm like, nope, we're not becoming radical here. But you want to get into conversations with people as opposed to making absolute statements. So she asked the lady, why do you have a weave? And it was such a beautiful encounter for me to witness and all of that. But yes, there will also be some people who are not comfortable having their kids around my kids. And I've seen that happen as well. I also try not to judge them. Sometimes I do, because sometimes I'm like, I have my superior hat going on and I'm like, oh, please, is that where you are? You need to, get rid of mental slavery. But when I'm not thinking that way, I tell my children also, it's okay for some people not to like you. You're not jollof rice. Even with jollof rice, there's all that debate about the Ghanaian one, the Nigerian one. So it's fine. Some people won't like you. That's life, isn't it? So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Aaliyah, I have another question for you. Can you tell me?
Aaliyah's shade away, but I will just fetch her 1 second.
Oh, okay. But while we're let me wait for her.
She's here now.
Okay, so Aaliyah,
So go ahead.
I hope the conversation is not too boring for you. But I have a small question for you. Do you know how to maintain your hair?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, can you tell me how?
I usually take out my hair every day.
Okay.
My mom doesn't. Well, I always care for my hair. I'm like, Mom, how do you palm roll hair?
Okay. Okay, so you know that your hair has to be palm rolled.
She's giving or tell them to send you the Lux gel or something. So I'm like developing a new thing to try on my hair to make it like a full lock style.
Interesting. Wow. Please,
I keep on trying new things. I really like trying new things.
Okay.
And sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes you have to keep on trying.
Okay. Please, I'm sure you're going to develop something really good very soon. And once you do, just let me know. I'm going to be your first customer. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, Precious, that was awesome. Please, we need to patent some of these inventions that Aaliyah is making. We need to know that they had
I
the
agree.
world had it first on talking locks with Locitude.
I absolutely agree. I think she's right on palm rolling though. So I mean, she challenged me this morning because she palm rolls her hair herself. And she's like, Mom, why can't you do, like, it's not difficult. All you need to do is watch a YouTube video. But I'm like, no, I need to, either go to Locitude or call Stephen, the person she mentioned, to come home and get the hair done. So yeah, I'm still challenging myself to learn how to palm roll. And I'm sure she will teach me. Yeah.
Okay, but just continuing that question, what is maintaining Aaliyah's hair for you? What was that like, and is it too stressful? Do you think you could be doing something else, or is it a process that you enjoy? How do you find it?
Oh, I absolutely love it because I feel like especially the hair washing days, right? It's a very deep bonding experience. You have your hands on your child's hair. You're making girl talk. You're asking questions. She's giggling. You're happy. And I think for me, what's even most fascinating with locks is the freedom that it brings. My kids are very outdoorsy, so she goes to swim. She can swim with her own natural hair without any fear of after swimming it's going to get dew and I might need another perm, all those concerns that you typically would have, if she had permed hair, but I think the process is very beautiful. It's not as stressful, and I must say this, as you would imagine, because that's another question people ask me, is maintaining locks very stressful? No, it's not. In fact, it's the best hairstyle if you are a minimalist or if you're the kind of person who just couldn't be bothered and you still want to, slay and all of that. Locks is definitely for you. It's easy to maintain. And I mean, Ade, I learned this from you, the almost zero products. I must share this story. A few weeks back, we went to a new salon, and they brought out a lot of products for my child and my hair. And Aaliyah wasn't having it. And she said, no, mommy, we normally don't use all these products for our hair. There is really no need for this, and we have to leave. And when my child said that to me, I said, you know what, you're right. I felt like I didn't have a choice. But I think that's the first time she brought up the palm rolling conversation. That, mommy, we need to learn to palm roll ourselves, just in case we're not in Lagos or where there is Locitude and things. We can help. We can help ourselves. So yes, it's very easy to maintain.
I'm so happy to hear this. And I really do not send interview questions ahead so that the conversations can be as genuine as possible. And sometimes I find out that I'm like taking notes and really happy about where the conversation goes because I've it's an unplanned conversation. But the next thing I kind of want to bring up speaks to some of the work you're doing personally, and I'm trying to make a link to how it affects your thinking, how you communicate with your children. And I believe because we've had a ton of interesting conversations since we've met at the Locitude studio. And I know what you do is called the Thinking School. And the fact that it was called the Thinking School by itself kind of made me think. I was like, okay, what kind of school makes you think? And in getting to know you and seeing how you're raising your kids, I do know that thinking is what is allowing you to make the decisions that you're making for not just yourself, but helping your kids with those decisions as well. So can you tell us a little bit about, the Thinking School and how you think it affects, your hair choice?
Yeah, I think I say this often. The Thinking School is my life's work. Since I was 6, about my daughter's age, I've always been curious about the human mind. And I think the first day I really observed was I was in a debate with a boy where I think the debate was about girls are better than boys or something. And I was terrified of him. I thought he would win the debate, but I won. And he started crying. And for the first time, I'm thinking, wow, we were both terrified of each other. That was something I didn't consider at the beginning. And then I started to think, just observing humans, how we show up in the world, why we do the things that we do, questioning my own assumptions as well. I alluded to it earlier where I said I never make absolute statements. I don't want to raise kids, that that live in the realms of the absolute, because again, who knows, right? So it's been exciting, and my work is my life, so to speak. Wherever I am, and I tell my children all the time, our home is a thinking school. Thinking is always happening. I mean, you should think. So the why question, everything. If I say, even when I say do this and I'm your mom, you should question, because I don't know it all. Your father doesn't have all the answers. The teachers in school don't have all the answers, right? Nobody does. And that's how we innovate. So constantly questioning these assumptions. Is this right? Is this not right? Should I do it better? Should I not do it better? And I think that's what has led me, and I see where the open-mindedness have taken me to. I mean, meeting people like you, for example, every single day, there's something exciting that comes my way. And I start to think to myself, how do I get more people involved in this thinking movement? How do I get more Nigerians specifically to start to think critically? How do I create content? How do I create, not teaching you anything, but just guiding you back to your innermost, your inner self, where you start to question even your own assumptions? That's a good place to start. So that's kind of my life's journey. That's what I do. That's my work. And that's what I plan to continue to do. And yes, it does influence how I raise my kids, because this is me also. When you raise people who are not, what's the word? They're not saying yes to everything you're doing just because I'm their mom or their dad. You make all the right decisions, or their grandparents or their teachers in school. So that way, I remember when one of my kids' teacher made a very bad error in judgment. I think my daughter observed something that was an error in judgment. But she came back, she told me about it. And the next day, the woman apologized. And my daughter says to me, no, it was my son who says to me, "Oh, Mama, look, she realized she took some time to meditate. So she realized that she made an error in judgment." So that's it. It's just giving them that head start in terms of recognizing the human condition, questioning your assumptions, adding your bits to the world, at least before we go. I mean, we talk about all sorts of topics, death, life, nothing is off limits. And I think it allows for a richer living experience, so to speak. Yeah. And of course, it does affect my head choice. It's almost natural. Like if I had a spirit, I'm sure my spirit has locks, right? So there you go.
Okay. Okay, all right. I need to start thinking about what version of my spirit self, I have to build up my spirit self, and their look probably would look exactly like me, but I'm not sure. I'm going to speak to a little bit on accessorizing, so at any point do you feel like Aaliyah is being left out because of her hair choice with do you feel limited? The little girls have like the beads in their hair, they do all the styles with the pink ribbons and all of that. Do you in any way feel like her hair choice limits her from being a kid?
Okay, because she's I would have loved her to answer this question herself, but Aaliyah being a kid, she's run off somewhere and is doing what kids do. Mm-hmm. Aaliyah is the fashionista. I'm not. So, for example, this interview, she did not approve of my, what I wore and how I packed my hair for this. She said it was too bland, and because I was, being interviewed by you, I needed to put in a little more effort, right? So she has all sorts happening with the hair. She chooses her hairstyles. What you didn't see earlier was she was on the phone, so she knows how to type locks on Google and see different lock styles for 6-year-olds. So there's nothing boring about her hair. In fact, what's fascinating is in our school, where some people were thinking, what sort of hair choice is this? But because of Aaliyah and how she carries it, I've had a few people come back to say, I wish I could do this. My husband would agree, but I wish I could do this for my child. So if for nothing else, I think it gives her a lot more freedom to be able to create. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm not you, Ade, because I imagine sometimes if you wear your child, you'll be able to do so much more. I can't do anything to save my life. So she's poor child, right? She's having to go on YouTube herself to educate herself and then learn how to manage her own hair. But I definitely do not feel. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that I'm happy for you to loan her to me for Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, right? And then you will return her after the first hour, but no problem.
That's why I
Yeah,
said one
yeah. So
day.
I don't feel anyway. So
Okay.
one day I'm happy to, so that I can rest. I'm happy to.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think I feel any way about her losing out because of her hair. If for nothing else, though, sometimes I feel like some of those beats are too heavy. For children our age. Sometimes I feel like those hairstyles are not even age appropriate, especially me being a child who really hated my hair being made. I didn't like it at all. It looked good in pictures, but I was never smiling in them, right? So I don't know if we ask children about some of these decisions we make for them, if they will be 100% on board. So I don't feel like she's missing out at all. No.
Okay. Okay. I have a couple more questions, and I hope I'm doing good when it comes to time. I think I'm doing good, actually. Um, and I think the conversation has been interesting so far. The next question is really interesting, and I think I'm going to phrase it in a couple of ways. So I'm asking, like, does it kind of age her to have locks at such a young age? And when I say age, I mean, does it make her feel older among her peers, or does it make her look older among her peers? And the reason I feel like that's a little bit of a difficult question, I feel like Aaliyah is such a mature 6-year old, so already she behaves maturely in herself because of how she's being
Yeah.
raised, in my opinion. But do you think that there's anything that the hair influences in that light, so in that regard?
Yeah. I won't say that it's something that, I mean, this is a clearly difficult question, but I wouldn't say that it's her hair, because you're right, her personality is very, she's very evolved, in terms of how she shows up in the world. But I think what her hair has done for her, if for nothing else, is if my daughter comes into a room, you notice her. Question becomes, does she get good glances? Or some people, feel sorry for her that probably she has a child abuse situation going. Her parents could have just permed her hair instead of, letting her carry a natural hair. I never know what people are thinking when they see us. But, she's the kind of child that you notice. So I think about that also in terms of, what that would translate to in her later years. And again, as somebody who doesn't make absolute statements. I don't have the answer. So I'm intrigued. I am curious also to see what she says to me when she's 10, what she says when she's 16, for example. She's come back to tell me that by the time she's 13, her hair will be so long, will probably be touching the floor, and then nobody can tell her nothing, right? When the hair starts touching the floor, nobody, including me, can tell her anything. She's getting a driver's license. She's going to be able to do anything she wants. So I found that very interesting, right? The ability to connect your hair with freedom. Because I'm like, oh, just because you have long locks, even the police, like, nobody can talk to you. She's like, yes, mama. I'm like, okay. So I don't know what I have started. I'm just going to have to wait and see, what happens. I mean, people have asked me that what if she grows up and then she decides to, she's even angry when she starts to see pictures and say, oh, why she cuts off her locks? And she's like, why did you do my locks? And all of that. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to know what will happen when she grows up, right? All I know is we're involved in the conversation. At least she said to me recently that her locks is better than our 1-year-old picture where I made half of the hair. And because she was crying, I told the stylist to leave the other half. So one side was afro and the other side was made, right? At least now she has everything made. So I don't know. I'm just curious also to see how this evolves. Yeah.
It's an interesting point that you bring up, because people ask me questions when they're trying to make that decision for their child, which is like, what if the child doesn't like the hair in the future? But I think what we fail to recognize is that you deciding to put to leave your child's hair natural is a choice you are making for that child as a child. You deciding to put extensions on the child's hair or
Yes.
wig is a choice you are making at that point. So there's nothing wrong with you making a choice for your child, and when they are old enough to make the whatever choice they decide to make, then it's up to you to support it. So whatever thing you do, locks or anything, you are making
Absolutely.
a choice for the child. The conversation has been good, and
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot. I've learned some things that are inspiring. I think a couple more.
Thank you.
I think when I do these interviews, I'm always saying a couple more questions, and I keep on extending them to a couple more questions. But we had talked about weirdness and personality of like character that allows us to do keep our hair the way we keep our hair. And I think that personally, the work I'm trying to do with Locitude is to normalize locks, to make it the option that you don't have to think that you will be
Right.
judged to have. But I personally have experienced, people think that you are fearless because you have locks, or you are weird, or you are, all of those things because you have locks. So in saying that, my question is, do you think it is appropriate that we are perceived as being weird or stereotyped as a certain kind of personality type for us to have locks, and for your daughter to also be falling under that stereotype? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think until the we start to understand, and I got this thing about this being your natural hair from you. One of the conversations I had, my early days in Locitude, when you were telling me about how can something so natural, and this is me paraphrasing you, be unnatural, so to speak. So I remember, for me, it was my brother who. There's a very kind woman who lived on the same street as us. She was a traditional juju worshipper, and she used to carry really long locks. So the first time he saw me, he called me her name, like, "Wow, you have that lady's thing going on. What's up?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Her locks are really beautiful." And he's like, "No, why do you have locks?" And he kept going there. And then somebody else said to me that it makes sense that you do locks. You never want to conform. You go to great lengths to want to stand out. But you see, I don't even see myself as weird as people, kind of think of it. Like, I still think about so many things that I haven't done, and I'm 36, right? I haven't not broken any laws in my life. I've not done anything really outrageous enough for you to. And I'm a professional, because that's another thing. When you have locks, the assumption is, you maybe you're an artist, you are in some sort of profession, which is great, but I work within the corporate world, and I have locks on my head, so I don't think I'm that weird. Unfortunately, because we have not yet normalized, like, people will go to great lengths normalizing why you should have hair shipped from India on top of your head, and then they will tell you in that same organization to take off the hair that grows from the roots of your scalp, that's natural to you. So, but I feel like with my daughter, back to the story of my daughter and the lady at the pool, is we need to have these conversations. They're so important. We're not there yet. I am happy. I'm thrilled to be here, to be talking about this. We're not there yet, but we need to continue to have this conversation until it becomes normal. I'm so grateful for all the strong Black women that decided to make natural hair a thing. I'm grateful for people like you that are deciding, we need to normalize women having their own hair. Black women celebrating black hair and things like that. So we need to continue to have more of these. Have myself, now I have the next generation, which is my child, with her natural hair, loving it, talking about it. The other day, my mom told my daughter to make her hair sleep, pack it a certain way so that it sleeps, because she had everything up. And my daughter said the hair defiles gravity, like it doesn't sleep. This is how the hair is. And it was a good conversation. So she's educating her grandma, saying, this is how my hair is. It's not going to sleep. There's nothing you will do to locks that will make it look like cotton hair. That's not what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So we need also start to push different standards of beauty, you see. So when we look at this beauty mags and all of that, there is a stereotype that we still see, skinny, certain skin color, certain hair, things like that. We need children like my child. We need to start to have even books. So I'm very deliberate when I buy books for my children. One of our favorite books, shout out to the people who wrote the Malika story, are books of where she sees black girls with hair like hers. They're not too many. In fact, you really have to go to great lengths to find them. But these are some of the ways that we start to change the narrative. And these are things that we must all do, Ade. It's so important.
Right. Thank you so much. One more question. But before I go to that question, let me just go over some of the things that we've said. We've talked about addressing that fear, the fear of reminding ourselves of who we really are. And once we get to that point where we address that fear, then we'll begin to start to live freely. We've talked about how, Aaliyah is appreciating her beauty through her hair, which, it is not, we all kind of grew up with the Disney princesses and the long hair. I know that for the longest time, I wanted my hair to flip. When I move my head, I wanted my hair to, I wanted to be able to flip my hair with my hands. But nobody told me that I could actually achieve that with my natural hair. It seemed like the only way to be able to flip your hair to one side is if you had long silky hair. But right now I do have hair that flips and moves with the wind as well. So, there is something in our beauty. We've talked about not needing to be jollof rice, and everybody would not like you no matter what. Even if you had the longest flowy Indian hair, not everybody will still like you, and we kind of have to be comfortable in our skin. I know you've also talked extensively about how our point of view is not all that there is, and absolute statements are, pointless because you are losing an opportunity to learn something about somebody else. And I think one of the best things I've heard from what you said is that moment where you are actually bonding with your child in doing her hair, which is an interesting experience the way you put it, because I remember my mom doing my own hair as a kid and it was a struggle. So you are changing that narrative in how you're bonding with your daughter, and it is actually a nice moment washing the hair and nobody's crying and nobody's hoping that some hot comb is not going to burn their ears. That is beautiful. And you said you paraphrased me, but again, I am learning from this statement. How can something natural be so unnatural? I think right there is where the question is. And once we realize that it's so natural, there's no point fighting it. Everybody should be happy with not just locking their hair, but for kids to also have locks. So my very last question to you is, what advice do you have for parents out there who are considering locking their hair? And if we can have Aaliyah back in the room, it would be nice to hear what advice she has for her friends at school to lock their hair.
Okay. I think for me, it would just be to say, listen to your child and then honor what's natural. So in my case, even though Aaliyah did not know the name of what she wanted, it was very clear that she wanted locks, I don't want comb in my hair. I don't want this. I don't want that. Then the next option was, of course, she wanted locks. So I think it's to listen to your child. Be true to it. It's natural to have your natural hair. I don't know how else to say it. Listen to your child and be true to you. Aaliyah, any final words about people who children like you considering locks? What would you say to them?
I'm not sure if anybody has noticed that I've had locks, but I'll take an eye out.
Okay. That's the response you get, Ade, when a child reluctantly comes to give you final words.
Okay,
she just said whatever needed to be said to go back to what she's doing.
All right, but thank you so much. The conversation has been enlightening. I have enjoyed talking to Aaliyah. Yeah. Her voice is awesome. There's a beautiful ring to it. There's a way they say like the ovaries in my tummy are like dancing or something like that. I feel like I need one of those, but I know it's not easy work.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and we will be in touch as always.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yes, we will. It was such an honor to be here. Thank you, Ade. Bye now.
Bye. What an adorable episode this has been. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. In our next episode, we seek to explore locks in relation to the LGBT community. It will be interesting to see if discrimination leads us to make lifestyle choices such as locking our hair. The conversation promises to be exciting, interesting, informative, and of course, educative. I encourage you to be on the lookout for it. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Talking Locks podcast with Locitude. It has been such a pleasure being your host. My name again is Adi Balogun, and thanks to our producer, Savage Media. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at Locitude, Locitude, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And for more interesting podcast episodes on Everyday People with Locks, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We are currently on Google, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. And don't forget to keep it locked with an attitude. Bye.